Hey, it's registered dietitian Jessica Rucroft here from Jess Nourishes, and this video is going to show you all about what a green light serving for various wheat foods looks like in reality per the Monash FODMAP app. So if you have irritable bowel syndrome like I do, and you have started to navigate the low FODMAP diet, you might have come into a little bit of trouble and confusion when it comes to wheat products. I did, and I was a dietitian who got IBS. I don't think in grams, I think in cups and what it looks like right next to that little pencil there for sort of a size comparison. So before we start, never change any diet or lifestyle or medication before speaking to your healthcare professional, your family doctor, your pharmacist. The low FODMAP diet is not for everyone. Always speak to a registered dietitian who is trained in irritable bowel syndrome. And if you have a history of eating disordered or disordered eating, please do not attempt a restrictive elimination diet or weigh your food. It's a very slippery slope when it comes to FODMAPs and the FODMAP diet if one already has a complicated relationship with food and eating. So please ensure you speak to a registered dietitian who's especially trained in your exact needs. All right, so let's get started. Okay, when I think of wheat foods, the first thing I think of is bread. So the Monash serving of whole grain bread is yellow light at 26 grams. So that's a really small amount. It gives it a less of a, higher rating when it's just whole wheat bread. So whole wheat is slightly less high FODMAP than whole grain. Whole grain, of course, using all the bran, all the germ, all the entire grain, as opposed to whole wheat, which may include certain percentages of the entire grain in its blend. So this is a slice of whole grain bread. I'm going to put this right here on my food scale, and you can see that this is a whole grain bread example. The whole grain is used, and you can see that it is 26 grams and 26 grams. And so this would be a yellow light serving per Monash. So that's not so bad. If you can compare it to this pencil here, you can see that it's a decent sized slice of bread. It's not like it's from the bread company packages that are very, very tiny. So that is a yellow light serving. If this was a piece of whole wheat bread, this amount may be green light, in fact. So it depends, not only is it wheat bread, it depends, is it whole meal, whole grain, or is it just white? So I've sliced off this half because this, in reality, I get this bread from Costco. It's Silver Hills, one of the Silver Hills breads. That, in reality, is the actual weight of a slice, and that's 33 grams there, you can see. So when we're looking at bread, you can see that not every bread company's slices are the same size. So it's really more of an eyeball thing. If you can kind of look at it per your hand, this is what I like to kind of use instead of grams, because you can't really do cups in bread. So it's kind of like about the size of your hand. If this was whole meal or whole wheat, this could be a green light serving. But because it's whole grain, uses the whole grain, a lot more fiber. Those GOSs and those fructans are in there. So this is an example of a high FODMAP portion. That would be red light. That would be probably yellow light. So this would be yellow light for whole grain bread. This is half of a small white bun. That is 18 grams. So Monash says white bread is a green light at one slice or 24 grams. So you see that is only a half of quite a small bun, and that's already 18 grams. So if I were to have this whole small bun, that would be 35 grams, and that would be approximately what they state a yellow light serving of white bread would be. That would be, yellow light says 36, that would be pretty much a yellow light serving in terms of white bread, including this bun. So this would be about, the size of a slider bun, for example. That would be yellow light. If one were to eat half of it, that would be a green light serving for white bread. Let's do the next one. Compared to my pencil, you can see the size of this pasta dish. If you want me to hold it in my hand, it's about half a cup. So Monash states a half a cup of regular wheat pasta is green light. So that's about 74 grams. My scale says 70, but Monash says 74 grams, up to 74 grams is green light. And wheat pasta at 100 grams is yellow light. So if this is a half a cup, which is green light at 74 grams, So let's add some more pasta noodles here and see what that actually physically looks like for a yellow light serving. So if you're moderately intolerant to fructan, this is now, boop, boop. That would be the 100-ish, 100 grams, 101 it states on the Monash app. So you can see right there that that's not so bad of a portion. This would be, a side dish, if you would. So if you're not that intolerant to wheat fructans, wheat really isn't the most concentrated source of fructans. It's just because we tend to eat a lot in a sitting, right? We have, an entire big sub bun or a huge plate of pasta, for example. So this right here would be 2/3 of a cup of wheat pasta right here. So this is what it physically looks like for a yellow light serving of fructans per the Monash app a couple years ago. So gnocchi is classically made with a blend of wheat and potato. So the Monash states that gnocchi, wheat-based, is red light. It doesn't give us a green light serving, interestingly. So it says it's a red light at 100 grams. It doesn't tell us how much potato is in that wheat gnocchi. So it's kind of tough to kind of gauge how much one would really be intolerant to. I personally can tolerate a full-size serving of gnocchi that's 100 grams, and I'm very sensitive to fructans, and I don't usually find it a problem. So either my gnocchi compared to their gnocchi that they tested has more potato in it, or something. But you can also get gluten-free gnocchi and gluten-free grains, which we'll get into, are lower in FODMAPs usually. We'll get into some exceptions as well. If you want to have, say, gnocchi as a main star of your meal instead of like a supporting actor, like on a side dish. So this is 72 grams of gnocchi. So if we were to follow along the rest of the Monash, line of, grading foods, if we were to have that 75-ish, 74-ish grams of wheat pasta, or the half a cup of pasta, that looks like this much. If we were to have that much of the pasta, that's green light. And if it's 74 grams, then I've measured out what that actually looks like in gnocchi that is not gluten-free, that does have the wheat. It's really not a lot. If someone is very sensitive to fructans and 74 grams was this amount, that's kind of a small portion to have. So yeah, you have to kind of gauge, play around with it. If you have an otherwise low FODMAP day and you try 100 grams of gnocchi that's supposed to be red light, and see how you feel, usually monitor it about 4 to 8 to 12 hours later, depending if you're diarrhea predominant or constipation predominant. That'll help you kind of guess if you have an issue with wheat fructans, again, so long as the rest of the meal day is low FODMAP, so your sauce that you had the gnocchi with doesn't have any onion or garlic, and everything else is tickety-boo. You can see how you do with the full 100 grams of gnocchi, which looks like, see my cheat sheet there, whoop, that's way too much, there. So that's 104 grams, and that, per the Monash app, is a half a cup. Okay, let's talk about panko. So you can see here, this is 73 grams, and Monash states that panko breadcrumbs is green light for I think it's a whopping, rather, 1 1/4 cup of panko. That's 75 grams, so it's pretty light compared to how dense, say, gnocchi is as a wheat product. Oopsies, I'm spilling panko everywhere. So if you were to throw this on your, chicken tenders and your, cod or something, if you were to make breaded cod or breaded chicken tenders, my favorite thing to do is breaded green bean fries. They're delicious. You must try them. You can have, quite a big amount. You don't have to go for gluten-free panko breadcrumbs. Of course, if you have some medical condition that requires you to stay away from gluten, celiac disease, eosinophilic esophagitis, blah, 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 you may need to do gluten-free, of course. But this, for anyone who just has IBS and not a medical condition that requires you to stay away from gluten, regular panko, it's cheaper. First of all, gluten-free products are expensive, and you can use and eat a lot for a low FODMAP portion. So I would say for breaded products, the biggest consideration would be, is there any onion powder or garlic powder in the breading? Those are more concentrated sources of FODMAPs than wheat panko breadcrumbs per se. Okay, one of the most funnest updates to the Monash app, they tested English muffin, and I was very surprised to see that a whole English muffin, weighs 57 grams, therefore it kind of is in that, under 75, sort of 75-ish grams that usually is a green light for a wheat product. Pretty cool, right? So that is a green light serving. It says that English muffins, green light serving is a 67 gram one English muffin, a whole one. And yellow light would be 1 1/3 English muffin at 91 grams, and red light would be 106 grams. So very short, narrow window there, but 67 grams. This one whole English muffin is, per the Monash app, a green light serve, and my English muffin here you can see weighs 57 grams. So if 57 grams. So if you were to, for example, go to McDonald's and get a bacon and egg and cheese McMuffin, that would probably be low FODMAP. Not the sausage, because that contains lots of onion powder, garlic powder, and cheese is low FODMAP because most cheeses have 0 grams of lactose. Now this example saddens me. Monash FODMAP app states that a tortilla is low FODMAP at 1 tortilla at 36 grams, but you see my tortilla there, I had to slice off a chunk of it in order to make it green light per se. If I were to eat the whole tortilla, you see there, that'd be 40 grams. And Monash says yellow light would be 44 grams. So 36 grams green, 44 yellow. So it'd be probably somewhere like, that would be the max. Pretty much 36, say 34, round it up. That would be a green light serving per Monash, but who in the right mind is going to have that tiny of a tortilla, unless you find another flour tortilla that's like paper thin. This one is, fairly thick. It's a blend of corn and vital wheat gluten, so it might be a tiny bit more dense, hence the higher reading on the scale. But if when in doubt, just go for a masa corn flour tortilla. That is low FODMAP, so long as no other additives are added to it, and or a hard corn tortilla shell, or a gluten-free, rice or corn or quinoa blend of a tortilla in order to have a little bit more, because that's just sad to me. Okay, and this is authentic sourdough. It has no added baker's yeast. The ingredients are just flour, salt, water, and thyme. Thyme is in T-I-M-E, not T-H-Y-M-E, because we need to have it ferment for a long time in order to break down those fructans, so the natural lactobacillus bacteria and yeasts that naturally grow when we make a sourdough starter, break down those fructans by about 70%, depending on how long someone ferments it, and anything else that is added to the bread at the end product. But for plain sourdough, that's flour, water, salt. The Monash University says that the low FODMAP serving is 72 grams. Here's a slice of my sourdough, and you can see it's about the size of my hand, and it's about, I don't know how many inches that is. It's like a couple centimeters thick, or just below maybe an inch. And so that already puts me at 67 grams. So that would probably be equivalent to 2 slices of a smaller sourdough loaf. So just keep in mind that, depending on where you're slicing, this is towards the middle of my loaf. The end pieces will obviously be smaller, and more likely you'd be able to have the quote 2 slices. And that's kind of where you want to ballpark your guess when it comes to sourdough and keeping it a green light serving. But definitely, as you can see, it's a lot more bread for your buck when it comes to the low FODMAP diet and wheat products like breads, for example. So instead of having that, half a slice of that really tiny white bun that I showed earlier. If all the green light servings of wheat products that we've covered so far are green light around the 75, 72, 67 range, I measured out 68 grams of just flour. And, this is my theory, because Monash only gives us wheat flour is red light at 2/3 of a cup or 100 grams. It doesn't really hint as to, is there a green light serving of wheat flour? So if I were to kind of extrapolate all these sort of measurements and findings of green light servings being around 70-ish, 67-ish grams, 75 grams, then technically this would be something like, you know, probably maybe a half a cup of flour. And just to put in perspective, the size of my hand is about this much. So again, if you were to dredge your, chicken tender or cod fillet in flour, regular flour first, or use regular flour as a base for your roux for like, a mac and cheese, the macaroni, you could probably, probably best to do a low FODMAP noodle, such as a corn, quinoa, rice based noodle, as opposed to a wheat noodle for lower FODMAPs. But you wouldn't necessarily have to have the flour gluten-free as well to make the roux, because small amounts of wheat, as you can see, are low FODMAP. So even up to this English muffin, and possibly perhaps we would need to be testing that from Monash, maybe up to a half a cup of flour. It's tough to say because all these different products have different densities, etc. But that's where my mind would go. So really, if you're, say, going into the holiday season, having a regular wheat cookie that's not really that big, it's not one of those giant cookies the size of your head, you probably don't need to get a gluten-free one, and you probably could be just fine. Just one thing to note: if you ever are interested in trying out one of the specific FODMAP degrading enzyme blends, FODZyme makes a great one that I absolutely love, and I'm an affiliate partner with them, so I get a commission off of FODZyme, your first FODZyme sale. I highly recommend this product because when sprinkled on foods that contain fructan, galacto-oligosaccharides, or lactose, if you are sensitive to one or all of those, it breaks it down beautifully up to about 90%. They've done lots of great studies about it. So what I would do if I were to eat, a regular big portion of pasta, or, have, lots of these tortillas, or have as much gnocchi as my belly could handle, I could just simply sprinkle the FODZyme powder on these foods and enjoy. Again, this is all varying between individuals, health histories, whether or not you have to avoid gluten for medical conditions, or if it's just a fructan intolerance, like the 1 in 7 of us with IBS. All these things can be discussed with your registered dietitian who's trained in irritable bowel syndrome, but I highly recommend, if you are intolerant to fructans, that you give FODZyme a whirl in order to not have to, order all these things in the gluten-free version, which really is, like, in my opinion, like $2 a box on average more per purchase. So a box of gluten-free pasta I found up here in Canada is like $7 a bag, or a box for like 400 grams of pasta, whereas a regular wheat pasta is usually so much cheaper. So even though the FODZyme powder is kind of pricey at, say, $2 or $3 a dose, in my opinion, I make up for that cost when I don't have to order specifically gluten-free specialty items, which tend to run a lot more expensive. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this green light hand dancing thing. All right, so here's a little assembly of all the low FODMAP or suspected low FODMAP based on my nerding out on extrapolating grams of wheat products, low FODMAP or potentially green light servings, or actually tested green light servings. And yeah, drop me a comment in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more of these what the heck do FODMAPs look like in real life, and a lot of other IBS tips that you will see me cover. All right, take care now. Bye bye.